Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. Hope you're doing well. I know I'm doing pretty great this morning because when I woke up, my YouTube algorithm, the content gods decided they were going to bless me with a feast. This video on none other than Tim Pool's channel, a 2-hour-long torture session titled Woke Has Infected Goth, Punk, and Metal. MAGA must save the arts. Yeah, I can't wait to hear the Trump admin's new grindcore initiative they'll be releasing next month along with the Epstein files. Now, as some of you may know, we have covered Tim Pool on this channel before, specifically in regards to discussions around alt culture and punk and leftism. And typically when Tim does embark on these topics, it is nothing short of a comedy show. But Tim, despite his big beanie and rat face being on the thumbnail of this video, seemingly does not appear in the discussion, which you would think is a blessing in disguise, but instead, this conversation is being helmed by 3 other total clowns. Frontman Phil Labonte of the band All That Remains, which, he is a regular on the Tim Pool Timcast show at this point. We also have Jake Monroe, some sort of right-wing goth social media figure who claims in this discussion to know everything about all of this stuff. So I'm sure his takes are going to be very informative here.
Hey, what's up? My name's Brian Graupner.
Well, let me tell you, again, the 2-hour conversation these 3 men have together about goth and punk and everything else is loaded with bangers. And by that, I mean like globs of dog shit that you basically step in with every minute you continue to listen to this. You could pretty much hop into any point of this discussion and they are saying something wrong. For example, at 1 hour and 17 minutes, you could see Phil Labonte trying to, after bringing up Earth Crisis, legendary vegan straight edge hardcore band who are still very much active and performing after all these years, which Phil doesn't seem to know despite bringing them up as if, he's like got the inside scoop on them and metalcore in general. And after an hour of bloviating about how open and accepting underground subcultures were back in the day before leftism and wokeness ruined them all, he brings up that dudes used to notoriously get punched out at these types of shows for doing something like lighting up a cigarette.
Even back then in the 90s, you could have differing opinions. Now, I will say that if you were in the 90s, if you were at a straight edge hardcore show, you better not light up a Monroe. Okay? You better not light a cigarette. I've seen some bad things happen to dudes that thought that it was okay to smoke at an Earth Crisis show.
Geez. So non-confrontational, so not asking people to conform to rigid values and ideologies. Yes, that's what underground music has always been. And that's essentially the core issue with this entire discourse these guys are having. They're telling essentially 2 massive lies here: that alternative culture, goth, punk, what have you, has always been either mostly or completely apolitical, and 2, given that lack of belief, there's no way these scenes would have any kind of exclusionary behavior going on based on ideology, political opinions, or anything else. Which, if you've spent an hour in some of these places, much less an entire lifetime growing up in them, you know how bullshit that is. Even over seemingly unimportant things. Like, I've been turned away from a goth club in LA because my shoes were white. Now, given Phil's years of involvement in the underground metal scene, in metalcore, in hardcore, you would think this man has more background about things like straight edge culture, vegan culture, hardcore in general, the ethos of bands like Minor Threat and all those that sprung off from them years to come. But if he knows any of this stuff, he's certainly not relaying it to the Timcast audience. And in fact, his only reference point for some of these genres going mainstream seems to be like the popularity of Hot Topic in the early and mid 2000s.
And Hot Topic had become, and still probably is, kind of the corporatist, superficial demonstration of the quote unquote underground subculture.
Which ironically, I don't know, as a fan of loud rock, I would have always kind of categorized All That Remains as like a Hot Topic type metalcore band. You can literally go on Hot Topic right now and buy an All That Remains t-shirt. So like why Phil is was decrying the fact that metalheads and punks and goths have more access to this culture through stores like that. I don't know. Like, dude, that's literally your core audience. Mall metalcore guys are your audience. But honestly, as clueless as Phil is as a host and a historian on these topics, the true cancer of this conversation is this Jake Monroe guy.
I mean, that stuff was relatively inoffensive when you really it's all superficial, like these piercings can be taken out, tattoos can be removed, but of course now with the woke movement there has been a far more permanent addition to a lot of the ideologies, which is obviously the gender ideologies that has been introduced, which I think mainly is the largest contention people have.
And the more I hear him talk in this video, the more he comes across like a pretentious twat, and that's coming from me. In fact, I love this take that he has to give here.
Me and Brian here are the alternative voices that sort of contest the woke ideology, because wokeness is, by its very operation, a form of conformity.
Yep.
And alternative and countercultures are meant to renounce any form of conformity.
Now, this whole anti-conformity rhetoric that Jake is spitting here sounds maybe good or believable on the surface, but it's wrong. And it's not that punks and goths and metalheads are interested in subverting authority or going against the grain culturally. They are. But to paint that intention as being completely uninformed about what direction it's going in or what specifically is being rejected in that anti-conformity stance, that is a lack of information there. I mean, if you actually were just blindly rejecting any sort of conformity whatsoever, first off, that would put you in this never-ending cultural pendulum swing loop where the moment things get too far left, you're pushing right. The moment things go too far right, you're pushing left. That's fucking stupid. That's a complete lack of beliefs and principles. The idea these underground genres and fashion trends were informed by nothing else other than just, I don't want to be like other people, is completely untrue, and nowhere is that more apparent in the very strong political positions that you'll find on records and in art from Crass or The Clash. Susie Sue from Susie and the Banshees was a staunch feminist who saw her look and presentation as very confrontational and going against traditional beauty standards. Like, she did not pick this look up because she saw a hot big titty goth girl on the internet. And Jake continues in this conversation to give completely ahistorical and uninformed takes about underground music culture.
I don't know if you've ever met any alternative kids. They're not the most outgoing, right?
They are not.
No.
That's part of the reason why they're kind of looking for the alternative lifestyle.
Right. They're the most non-confrontational types of people. So, you could go to the mall and you could maybe have some conflicting ideologies with someone, but you're not going to bring this up because that would start an argument, and that's horrible, right? That's the worst thing ever.
The idea that alt subcultures now have just become more confrontational because leftism has taken over and they have access to the internet, to me, is very funny, especially considering that back in the day, these were the same scenes where terms like poser were popularized, where underground gatekeeping truly had its heyday, a time when bands as abstract as Sonic Youth were getting guff and getting called sellouts for being on Geffen Records. Also, need I remind you that one of the most popular punk songs of the 80s is literally Nazi Punks Fuck Off, which I love that track, from what I can see, I have not heard this whole hunk of shit, doesn't come up in this conversation because obviously that would go against the, woke is a recent thing narrative. And if any band today, made a song that was like a punk song or a goth song or whatever that said, Nazi punks fuck off, that would be woke.
It's just like we're so angry and hateful and we do such disgusting, awful things. How can we justify this? How can we still be on the right side of history? Oh, that's right. We'll just call them Nazis. So we're just going to call them Nazis and we're going to call them fascists. And so when we act the way that we're going to be acting, we can still feel good and go to bed and fall asleep and dream about communism.
But yeah, despite there being very clear evidence that subcultures and underground music of all types and stripes have always had very strong opinions about who was in and who was out, Jake insists the only kind of gatekeeping that was happening back in the day is name 3 songs, name 3 Susie and the Banshees songs that aren't on Juju.
And the gatekeeping we had was... name 3 songs. Oh, you like Susie and the Banshees? Name 3 songs not from the Juju album.
That's such a good point. And now it's, can men become women? If you don't, I'm going to just destroy your life.
Yeah, and I pointed this out. I actually figured out why they shifted this.
Why's that?
Because they wanted goth to be political. They wanted to gatekeep based on politics. Goth music is not political in any way.
Which I have a better challenge for Jake. Can you name 3 gay bars that Susie Sue used to frequent back in the day where all of her boyfriends were girlfriends and girlfriends were boyfriends?
And I didn't go to the hetero top rank places. I'd skip up to town and go to a gay bar or a gay club. Had lots of girlfriends that were boyfriends and boyfriends that were girlfriends, and had a great time. And as I say, it saved my life.
But of course, this is information that Jake wouldn't know or relay to the people watching this crappy video and discussion when this is what he thinks of women in the alternative and the metal scene.
I'm gonna upset you a little bit here. Almost all female metalheads are quote-unquote posers, okay? They got it from their last boyfriend. Seriously, until interesting guys with interesting hobbies and interests come along, chicks are usually just watching Love Island and shopping.
Which, we need to talk about this clip here, and believe me, it's not about what he's saying. I mean, that in and of itself is obviously wrong on the surface. But from the look here, you could really tell this man has very few or maybe no alt or goth women in his life. Because if he did, they would do him the favor of being like, dude, your makeup is trash. You look like the fucking I Like Turtles kid. Look, this isn't body shaming. I'm not calling the guy ugly. What we're talking about here is a choice. This man woke up and volunteered to make himself look like the I Like Turtles child. And I just think no one is telling him because no one loves him. To kind of close this conversation out, there's another clip where Jake is whining and moaning about artists like Hayley Williams, the great, talented, fantastic Hayley Williams, who recently made a statement about how she doesn't want, like, racists at her shows or supporting her music in any way. And Jake's just like, what's the point of that? You can't literally make sure people like that aren't going to your concerts.
Hayley Williams just came out and sort of spewed the same rhetoric where it's just like, I don't want these people at my shows. And it's just kind of like, please just lay out just some of the basic foundations on how you're even going to curate the fans that come to your fucking show.
Yeah.
There's no way you can enforce this. No, it's a virtue signal.
I imagine it boils down to don't wear a Make America Great Again hat.
Yeah. But then you can go and then be like, woo, yeah, like Misery Business, what a great track. And then you go into the ballot and you vote Trump again. Well,
yeah.
Like, what does it matter?
Which, like, no artist is putting out that statement thinking that that's literally what they're doing. They're just communicating hostility toward people who they don't want in their audience, which, I mean, even if it doesn't have a 100% success rate, believe me, it does work. I am quite hostile toward conservatives on social media and in my videos on a regular basis, and partially that is as a means of keeping them out of my comment sections because I don't want them in here being homophobic, transphobic, racist, and so on and so forth. But again, what Hayley is doing here is not a new phenomenon. It's literally giving Kurt Cobain incesticide liner notes vibes, where he famously told racists and homophobes to stay away from Nirvana's shows and to not buy their records. And I don't know, I think Kurt Cobain's opinion here on these things holds more weight than a guy who looks like a meme from 2007, much less this other loser who I don't even want to address in the conversation, who's like the annoying little brother in this conversation, and on his album covers looks like a fucking character from Disney Zombies at Seabrook High. Again, if you guys had goth women in your lives, they would tell you these looks are shit. Okay, I think we're going to leave it there for now. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it greatly. Let me know what you think about all this down in the comments. I'm sure you will. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, punk, goth, but forever.